Welcome back into the show, guys. You know I love stories beyond just sport. I love comeback stories. I love guys beating the odds, doing something incredible. Well, Kevin Pearce is that. The name may not ring a bell, but let me take you backwards a wee bit on the life of Kevin Pearce. He was at the time, 2009, one of the favourites to win the halfpipe at the Winter Olympics. He was dominating the X Games. He was going head-to-head with an athlete a lot of you will know in Shaun White, the Flying Tomato, who has become a megastar, Red Bull sponsorships, all of this. But then New Year's Eve 2009, Kevin Pearce was practising for the Olympic Games. He was trying a new trick. He was 20 feet above the snow. He got his landing wrong. He landed on his head. It was videoed by a mate of his. He was instantly knocked out, blood coming out of the nose. He then goes into a coma for over 30 days. Doctors thought the worst, severe brain injuries. Would he ever walk again? Well, Kevin Pearce started the long route back to living life normally again. And since then, his story has become almost a poster boy in America for what you can do despite the odds. He's back snowboarding. No way he's ever going to compete again. He is commentating on the international tour. But more importantly than that, Kevin Pearce's story, he's using his own experience to try and educate young Americans about the dangers of concussion. Kevin Pearce to this day still suffers the after effects of that fall, New Year's Eve 2009. So he tours the country educating all sorts of youngsters, all sorts of players from all sorts of different codes. The simple message is this: take care of your melon. Well, the documentary on Kevin Pearce's life, as I said, it's a remarkable documentary, is about to come out to New Zealand on Rialto March 27. It is called The Crash Reel. So March 27 on Rialto. So we thought we'd bring in Kevin Pearce to chat with the two sides of his life and how he's managed to turn it around to a point now where he may not take his previous life over the one he's got, despite the hurdles he's had to overcome. Kevin Pearce joins me now from his home in the United States. Kevin, lovely to chat with you. It sounds to me that life is good for you at the moment.
Hey, I'm so lucky, man. Thanks for having me on. My life is so phenomenal. You know, my life after you see what I've been through and where I was, the fact that I've been able to get to where I am today is just kind of unreal to me. And it's just been, the craziest ride I could ever imagine, the last 4 years. But for the fact that I've been able to turn it into what it is and end up where I am today is so amazing.
Well, what I love about your story, Kevin, and what I love about comeback stories is that you're not bitter and twisted about the way that fate dealt you these cards. Yeah,
it's crazy the cards that I've been dealt, and this deck of hands that I've had to weave through and figure out here in my short life that I've lived so far. And it's just kind of been something that I would have never ever thought would happen to me. I was one of those kids where I was that good at snowboarding that I never, I was always the one that thought that there was no way that this would ever happen to me. And I did see it happen to kids, and I have seen kids get injured very badly, and I never thought that I would be that person. I thought I was, totally, not going to be the one that had this, and then, sure enough, it happened to me.
Well, Kevin, the most amazing thing about your story, and a lot of stories like yours where people go through unbelievable trauma and difficulty here, is that it's that great thing. You grew up and you only wanted to be a snowboarder. You became the peak. You're in this unbelievable battle with Shaun White, who's now got even an amazing profile in New Zealand here, yet beyond that, how was that dealing with the realisation when you come out of the coma, you realise life's not going to be the same again, but also your passion, your dreams, your aspirations are over?
Yeah, that's actually an interesting one, because it wasn't for a long time until I was, able to realize how much my life has changed and, how different things were going to be. When I was in the hospital and I was going through that and the rehab and all of that, I never thought, that things were going to turn out as they did. I thought I was going to, have this injury and it was going to be like any other injury. I was going to rehab it. I was going to fix, what was wrong, and I was going to get back on my snowboard, and I was going to compete again and do what I was doing. And, never did I once think that, my life was going to, completely totally change until I got back on my snowboard did I realize how severely I had been injured and how different my life was going to be.
What was that like, that moment when you got back on the board? Because everything clearly came unbelievably easy to you. You were talented, you could pull off tricks that had never been done before, but to get back on your board and realise the stark reality of knowing that simply your body and mind could not do what it used to.
Yeah, I could never even begin to explain to you how difficult that day was for me and how difficult, it was coming to accept that fact of how different it was and, how different I was. And it's so hard because I don't feel different. And, my brain doesn't tell me I'm different. And my brain wouldn't tell you I was different. If you saw me on the street, you would have no idea and have no understanding of what had happened to me. And it wasn't that I was able to understand really where I was and what had happened to me until I did get back on my snowboard.
Kevin Pearce with us as we look at this remarkable story in terms of the way he's turned around his life after what was just... I still find it difficult, Kevin, by the way. I've watched the video, and I found that video unbelievably difficult to watch.
Yeah, it's cool for me just because I don't remember it. That video is a part of my life. A lot of that stuff I don't have any recollection of. So to be able to see it and to see where I was and how far I'd fallen and, what my family did to help me recover from that injury and how their support and the support of my friends and the whole snowboard community and just all the love that I got, how that has helped me, turn this around and, make it possible to be where I am today.
Well, you're doing some great work around this whole issue of concussion. Now, this last year, and it created major headlines over here as well with the NFL, with the class lawsuit against the administrators, because all of a sudden players post their career. I mean, we saw a couple of tragic suicides. We got players actually starting to man up and admit that the long-term impacts of playing collision sports was starting to impact on them. So you're doing a lot of work with schools now. How are you finding in terms of people being aware now of concussions, about the brain, about what it can do, and about improving awareness of that?
Yeah, it's been amazing for me to see, just how blind, the world is to concussions and head injuries, and how, it's just such a quiet, silent, invisible, unknown topic that it's almost kind of untalked about and unknown about. And it's such a major topic, and it's so wild to me how unknown it is just because of how important our brains are. And, it's obviously, what allows us to do what we do. And it's not until you injure it until you really realize, what your brain does for you and what it means to have a healthy, working brain. And it's kind of really become very, very clear and, much more real to me of, how amazing my brain is.
Here's the difficulty, though, Kevin. I interviewed one of your NFL players. I can't remember his name. I'm sorry, I should remember. But a couple of years ago, and I asked him the question when this whole story was breaking. I said, what if you knew that your career and you would suffer long-term impacts, i.e. a brain injury, concussion? Would you take the punt still? Would you take the millions of dollars from your income? And his answer was a resounding yes.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's not until really I think you go through it and you feel the consequences and you feel how your life changes and what happens to you until you can really understand what your brain does and what it means and how it affects you until you injure it and until you damage it. So it's kind of it's understanding. It's like I never had any idea how important my brain was and what it did for me until I went through this. So, I don't blame the folks that, don't quite get it and don't understand it, because I had no idea until, it happened to me.
Well, it's Kevin Blokes, though, isn't it? It's the male syndrome. We're bulletproof. As you said earlier in the interview, we just don't think bad things are going to happen to us. And even with guys over here at the moment, rugby players, Kevin, who are simply reluctant to even go and have scans or get tested and see what impact their rugby careers have had on them long term.
Yeah, it's hard. The long-term effects are huge, and, I think that it's really starting to become clear of, when you do damage your brain at a younger age, and then when you start to get older, the side effects and, the later effects that your brain does start to endure, and you do start to encounter what can happen when you start getting older, and we're really starting to see that now with these sports, and, rugby and snowboarding and all these different sports, football, skateboarding, wherever we are seeing these head injuries, now we're starting to see, the after effects and what does happen when these athletes start to get older, and, how their life changes.
So, Kevin, when you go around the schools, and you've been doing a lot of education, a lot of charity work in terms of getting kids to wear helmets, particularly when they're snowboarding, they're doing their sports that you love, is the message getting through in the States?
It's interesting. It's been really, really special and really cool for me to be able to go around and talk to kids, because how I do it is I have a little clip of the movie, and it's about a 10-minute clip showing, kind of like a little teaser and a rough idea of what I went through. And usually when you go and talk to kids, they have an attention span for about 2 or 3 minutes, and then they kind of get off, and they're doing their thing, and they're like, I don't want to listen to this guy anymore. I don't care about this. But I show them this little clip of the movie, and they're just glued, and they don't take their eyes off, and the room is totally silent. And it's really been amazing to be able to get through to these kids and share this message, and I really do feel like they hear me and they can really understand and really get a good idea of what has happened to me and what can happen if you aren't safe and you're not careful and you do injure your brain in a serious way.
Without getting totally deep and meaningful with you, but when I listen to you now and I see, the work that you're doing, as you say, you've never been busier, you're doing all sorts of different things that may never have happened. Have you ever sat back on a quiet Sunday afternoon and worked out which life you'd take? And you know what I mean by that?
Oh, I know what you mean 100%. I do that, on a close to a daily basis where I'm like, what would be happening right now if I didn't hit my head and I was still professionally snowboarding, and where would I be compared to where I am now, and, how this has affected and it changed my life. And, the way I look at it is I try and look at it in the best way that I can and in the most positive way. And the way I see it is that if I was still snowboarding, I would hope that I would still be as successful as I was, and I'd be doing really well, and I'd be having a ton of fun, and it would be amazing. But that was all stuff I was doing for myself, and it was only benefiting myself, it was only affecting myself, and it was only doing good for myself. And now I see the possibility to help millions and to help people around the entire world understand, what their brain can mean to them and what they can do. And so now it's like I've almost have a whole new mission and a whole new life in front of me, whereas before it was a very standard set life, and now it's something completely unknown and really exciting.
I'm going to take a very, very quick break. The Crash Reel is out March 27, Rialto. It is an incredible watch, the story of Kevin Pearce in terms of his recovery. We'll talk next. I want to have a chat with him about the Winter Games, about the changing dimension of the Winter Games, including the halfpipe and slopestyle, and the perception from some, even post-Sochi, that this isn't really true Olympic sports. The remarkable comeback story of Kevin Pearce. More to come.
Winning $4 million with Powerball feels like high-fiving your way around the world. Get your ticket in-store or online at mylotto.co.nz.
Bring your mobile into Vodafone and switch to the Red Essentials Open Term plan for even more amazing value. Now for only $69 a month,
you'll.com. Violins again, Maestro? Jill had a stroke at age 67 and went into a rest home. She had a home worth $600,000, but only $200,000 was exempt from geriatric care means testing. So Jill had to apply for her care costs. If only she'd sold her house into a trust when she was 47, then the profit in her home would have been protected. Call Ross Holmes Lawyers for a free consultation on 415-0099.
In your Herald on Sunday.
Tomorrow's Herald on Sunday comes with your free official NRL season guide and your chance to win a double pass to the Warriors vs Dragons on March 15.
All this and more in your Herald on Sunday, where great Sundays begin.
Hi, Paul from AV World. AV World stock the best range of Sonos in New Zealand. Sonos is simply the best streaming music system you can buy. It simply works. AV World for Sonos. 237A Dominion Road, Mount Eden. avworld.co.nz.
A new era in sport broadcasting. It's Veitch on Sport with Tony Veitch. Call 0800 80 1080 on News Talk ZB.
Welcome back into the program, guys. We are chatting with Kevin Pearce. Back in 2009, he was on top of the world. He really was. He was a contender for Olympic gold. Then an accident thwarted every one of those goals and aspirations. For the last 4 years, he's been in recovery mode. His life now, as he mentioned to start with, could not be better, though. It is a remarkable story. Kevin, I want to get on to the Winter Olympics. Now, New Zealand athletes, as you know, because you've trained over here, we're very much about the likes of Jossie Wells, who are in slopestyle and the halfpipe, but there is still a perception over here, Kevin, that these aren't legitimate winter sports. What do you say, and how do you react to that?
Yeah, I think it's hard because it's really hard to understand how legit these sports are unless if you try and go out and do that stuff. And it's really hard to tell on TV or to tell how much these sports take and what's involved by just watching. So I almost feel like the watching doesn't give you a good enough understanding of what these athletes are putting in and what they're, giving to make this happen. And I mean, it's very easy to go out and play basketball or, to do a lot of these other sports, but snowboarding is so hard that I think it's so hard for the public to understand what's involved with it and really kind of get how much these athletes are doing and putting into to make this stuff happen.
Well, you're about 40 feet off hard ice at certain points during these tricks.
Yeah, I would think that, people would see what these athletes are doing and, how much talent it takes and how much work and time and energy they're putting in, and they would give a little bit more respect and understanding for, what these guys are doing. So that's crazy to me that people aren't thinking that these sports are legit, because it seems as legit as it gets to me.
Well, the injuries and the danger factor, I know, as I said, I'm quoting Jossie Wells, was during the Olympics, he finished fourth in the skiing side of the twin tip side of the half pipe, and he basically said, you're putting your life on the line, and in some ways you're an example of this sport can be unbelievably dangerous.
Yeah, I think that I learned that firsthand of how dangerous snowboarding and skiing can be in these winter action sports, and how the littlest mistake can change your life forever. But I think that that's what's almost so fun and what's so exhilarating, and what us athletes love so much is that risk and that feeling of you have to be so on point, and you have to be so good to be able to do this stuff, and so few people are, and there's such a small amount of people that are able to be successful at it, and that's what makes it so fun for us.
Was there ever a moment, because you had a mental coach, and psychology of sport is something that fascinates me, was there ever a moment that you were ever scared out there, even when you're at the top of your game, when you're sitting there coming up with a new trick and you're trying it for the first time on the half pipe thinking, what the hell am I doing here?
Oh, God, yeah. I would completely be lying to you if I told you I was never scared. I was scared shitless up there at the top of the pipe when I was trying those new tricks. And it was, it was as scary as anything I've ever done before when I had to drop in and try one of those double corks and, do that stuff. And, it was before I really learned how to do it well, it was practicing that stuff and trying it into those airbags and learning how to, we're almost making up those tricks ourselves. They'd never been done before. And we had to figure out how to do them, and that's the scariest thing ever.
How was it for you deciding to do this documentary? Was there any part of you that said, you know what, I've sort of moved on from this, or were you completely and your family completely and utterly comfortable with it?
Yeah, it's been amazing, my family, and, the role they've played in this and the role they played in this documentary, and how they were 100% behind making this happen, and how they saw such a huge opportunity to share this, story and to share this with the world of, the possibilities of injury and the possibility of recovery when you do have an injury, and really just what it takes. And, I think the film does such a good job showing of how you really can recover from anything with the right family and the right support and the right attitude and, the right amount of work that you can do it. And, don't get me wrong, it has not been one bit easy. It has been a brutal and hard recovery. And I mean, there have been days that I've been down in the dumps, and there have been days that I have just hated it. But, you know, what it all comes to is hard work and dedication and motivation and so many different things that have made this possible to, you know, to allow this recovery to happen. And I think it's so cool to be able to share that with people. So
what got you through those tough days? Was it the family?
You know, it really was. And it was, you know, trying to have that attitude of looking at, you know, the positives and everything that was going so well for me, then rather than feeling bad for myself and feeling sorry, but, you know, rather to look at everything that was so good and my amazing family and all my friends and all the support and all the love. And, you know, so I did that. Instead of feeling bad, I tried to take the other side. And
does it still work for you now? Because you look at life in general and you look at mental illness now and you look at the amount of people impacted by things like depression. And I know one of our most famous All Blacks over here, Kevin, he's launched a campaign a number of years ago, John Kerwin, to get people talking about this. So do you think positive viewpoints and your viewpoint, I mean, this is what we look at snowboarders, don't we? We look at you guys as being up and out there and happy guys.
Yeah, you know, and it's like you do have to deal with those times where it's not always all happy and fun and all good. You know, there are the times where you get down and you have to deal with those situations where, you know, it just sucks and you get to a really dark, deep place. And, you know, coming out of that's really hard. And I've been there and I've come out of there, and it's, you know, it's been tough. But, you know, I think showing people that you can get out of those places is really important, and that no matter how far down you fall, that you can come back and, you know, get out of whatever it is you're dealing with.
And Kevin, to wrap up, it's been great chatting with you, and I appreciate your time. Are there any lasting effects? I mean, do you suffer, for example, headaches? I mean, what are the side effects or the long-term impacts, or is the health pretty good now?
Yeah, you know, I still suffer a ton of, you know, side effects and issues that I'm still having of what my brain is, you know, trying to heal and learn how to recover and deal with. And, you know, the first and foremost is my vision. And, you know, I have a seriously awful problem with double vision and seeing two of everything.
Wow.
That has been, you know, hands down the hardest. But, you know, along with that, my memory and, you know, there's so many balance issues and, you know, just so many issues of my brain just getting tired and not being able to, having to take daily naps and just, you know, so many little things that, you know, come along with it that I've had to learn how to deal with. But, you know, instead of being sad and feeling bad about that stuff, you learn how to deal with this new life that I've been given and, you know, make the most out of it.
Do you still get on the board, and do you still love to go out and have a snowboard?
You know, I do still get on the board, and, you know, I've been so lucky that I've been able to meet some kids that have suffered two traumatic brain injuries and have, you know, not only done this once, but my mom talks about it in the film. She's like, I could never believe that somebody could do this twice to themselves. So seeing what would happen if I did hit my head again has helped me really kind of understand how fragile I am now and how careful I have to be. So I definitely still get on the board and still love snowboarding, but it's in a much different, safer, kind of smart way than it was going before, which is a big difference.
Well, Kevin, we need to find a way to get you over here because you love this little place called New Zealand, don't you?
Oh, gosh, man. I've traveled around the world. I mean, I have been everywhere. I've been to Greenland. I've been to North. I mean, I could go on. And I would have to say that when people say, where's your favorite place? Because every person's first question for me seems to be, where's the favorite place you've ever traveled? I would definitely, if you would not believe how many times I have had to talk about New Zealand and how much I love that country.
Well, it's nice actually, Kevin, because years and years ago when I was a baby little reporter, I used to have to always do the entertainment stories of like the Hollywood stars, and I got so frustrated at myself because they'd always want to say, you know, I really want to come to New Zealand one day. I've heard great things. I used to think it's such a cliche for a little country to want bigger countries to say nice things about us.
I know, but it's the truth, man, and you can't say anything bad about that damn place. It's too fun over there.
Oh, it's great, mate. Listen, Kevin, great to have you on the program. We'll do some negotiating. We'll try and find somebody to bring you over here, my friend.
Yes, I love it. There's nothing I would rather.
We'll make it work, Kevin Pearce. That is Kevin Pearce's story. I hope you enjoyed that interview, guys. Isn't it amazing? Through everything, he still can't categorically say which life he would take. The prospect of being an Olympic gold medalist, of following in Shaun White's footsteps, or even beating Shaun White, therefore becoming this megastar of the sport in the US. But what the work he is doing in terms of concussion research is quite simply fabulous.